Hi, my name is George Dagnino, and I'm the editor of the Peter Dac Portfolio since 1977. This presentation, Protecting Your Portfolio from Devastating Events, is the outcome of a lot of work in the last 40 years. And it's going to take six parts. The first three I will use them to state the problem. And the last three is presentations will deal with how to solve the problem and how to implement an investment strategy to protect your portfolio from devastating events. This present series of presentations are the outcome of 40 years of experience as a money management, as an investment writer and publisher of the Peter Dac Portfolio, in managing $4 billion of interest rates derivatives in interest rates and foreign currencies, looking at the world from many, many viewpoints, reading many, many, many books. So hopefully I will be able to transfer this knowledge to you. Let's see if I can succeed. In order to reach these conclusions, however, I had to force myself to think differently. After I look at all the facts that I'm going to show you, I said, George, you got to think different if you want really to protect your portfolio from devastating events. And by the way, this is how I manage my money and the money of my clients, of course. What is the objective then of managing my portfolio, or your portfolio if you wish? Well, the main objective is to manage risk. In other words, your objective is not to, the way I see it, is not to, yes, I want to make money. This is a nice thing to say. However, if you lose a lot of money, then you have a problem. It's going to take a long time to recover the money that you lost. So managing risk means managing the your portfolio, the value of your portfolio, protecting the capital that you have. And you can achieve that by reducing the portfolio volatility. And this is how the six presentations will explain. The first part of the presentation deals with the record in managing economic affairs. How are our leaders doing? Can we rely on them? If so, how? If not, why not? When I look at the leadership around the world of European leaders or American leaders, and I look at what really happened from a war viewpoint, we had wars one after the other. World War One, World War Two, Korea, Iraqi One, Iraqi Two. We had terrorism. Now is an ongoing thing. We have Afghanistan, Pakistan, North Korea. Is a constant Syria. Is a constant opening of new wars or new uncertainties or new crises. And of war, of course, induced chaos because people don't know what to do. What can be predicted? How can you expect what is the next war? What's going to come from? From Israel? From Russia? From where? Look also from an inflation viewpoint, the leadership of their in managing inflation. We went from the United States from 3% in the 1960s, late 50s and 60s, to 16% in 1982, and then we went through a long period of disinflation from 1982 to 2013, and now, as of the recording of this presentation, actually we have deflation because last month they announced that the CPI actually declined, the PPI actually declined. So there is a risk of actually prices to need to be cut if a business wants to stay in business. And of course, cutting prices means that profit margins decline, and if profit margin declines, business has to cut cost. So again, we go from inflation, disinflation, and possibly deflation. Well, let's look at the leadership in Europe and United States about our economic affairs. if you lived through the 1970s, we had a recession every 3 years. I was talking to management, and they were always saying, well, in 2 years we have a recession, so we cannot do anything. So we were conditioned, people were conditioned to expect a recession every 3 years. Then we had the boom times of 1998, growth in the 4% in the economy. And suddenly 1990, 91, we had the first recession, mild recession, but we had the first recession. So again, this constant fluctuations of the business cycle. And of course, now let's see their capabilities of what happened with credit and all the bubbles that we had in 1930, 1990, 2001, the Great Recession, the big bubble in housing, technology bubbles, credit bubbles, and the banking crisis in 2007 with the Great Recession, and interest rates that moved from zero from 0% in the 1930s almost to 20% in 1982, and now back to 0% in 2000 after 2009, 2010, when the average rate actually should be 5%. So everything, the credit and interest rates variations have been really wild since early 1900. When I looked at all these things, the leadership of again, Europe and the United States, I mean, I asked myself, George, wait a minute. But they say they're the great leaders, they're the great, powerful persons, and they really understand how the world works. But really, if they are such great leaders, how come they did not do anything to avoid this crisis? How come we have so many problems, one after the other, for a long time? And this is the point of this part one of this presentation. Obviously, the people in charge either are not capable. We think they are good leaders, but actually they're not. Or they really are not interested. They could care less about avoiding calamities. They try to do something when, like in 2010, in 2011, they act only if there is a crisis, but they act because they're trying to limit the damages of the crisis. So what is the lesson here? If you really want to be objective, try to think different. Well, the lesson is we should not expect that the people in charge, the leadership, will avoid other calamities in the futures, because they were not avoided in the past. We had so many. So the flip side there is anything can happen. So if you cannot expect or you cannot predict what will happen, then that means that anything can happen, even a devastating event, another devastating event. Well, thank you very much for listening to part one. I try to make it as short as possible. And now the presentation follows into part two. You have to click and find the part two presentation, where we deal with another series of issues that will lead us to the conclusion of how to manage money to avoid a devastating event.